The galaxy had forgotten humans. Or at least, that is what the alien conquerors believed. In the deep corners of space, inside a dark prison built from cold metal and stone, the last of Earth's survivors were kept like animals. The cells were narrow, the air smelled of rust, and the walls dripped with moisture. No sunlight touched this place. Only the buzzing of alien machines filled the silence. The guards, tall, insect-like creatures with sharp claws, walked the corridors with pride. They believed the war was over. They believed the human race was finished. To them, these prisoners were nothing but weak relics of a dead world. But the truth was different. Even in chains, humans carried something the aliens could not see. A fire, a memory, a silent promise. One of the prisoners, an older man with scars across his face, sat in the corner of his cell. His name was Marcus. His body was thin, his hands trembling, but his eyes burned like fire under the shadows. Every day, the aliens mocked him. Your kind was weak, one guard hissed through its crooked teeth. You fought, but you lost. Now you are nothing. Marcus never replied. He only stared back, silent. But in his silence, there was defiance. Another prisoner, a young woman named Aisha, scratched lines into the metal wall with a broken piece of stone. The guards thought it was useless scratching, some desperate act of madness. They laughed at her, but the lines were not random. They were symbols, old human war marks, messages of unity. Each mark whispered to the others, "We are still here. We are not broken. Wait for the time." The prisoners understood. The guards did not. Nights in the prison were the hardest. Cold air wrapped around them, and hunger bit deeper than chains. Some prisoners cried quietly. Some whispered the names of lost families. But even in the darkness, a strange strength held them together. They remembered Earth. They remembered the skies filled with fire, the oceans rising in smoke, the last battles fought on burning soil. They remembered how humanity had refused to kneel, even when the alien armies crushed their cities. The galaxy thought humans were finished. But the galaxy had not lived through Earth's history. It did not understand how many times humanity had been pushed to the edge and survived. One evening, as the guard changed shifts, a group of aliens gathered near the cells. They laughed, pointing at the prisoners. "These creatures are strange," one said. "They still look at us with anger. Do they not understand? Their planet is gone. Their armies are dust. Their story is finished." The guards laughed louder. The sound echoed through the prison halls. The prisoners said nothing. They only stayed, their eyes steady, burning with quiet rage. It was a silence heavier than any scream. Marcus leaned close to Aisha and whispered, his voice rough like gravel. "They think we are broken. Let them think that. The time will come." Aisha nodded. Her fingers continued carving the symbols, sharper, deeper. Each mark was a promise written in steel. The aliens grew careless. To them, the humans were finished. They left weapons in the distance, never guarded too tightly. They left keys on their belts, dangling near the cells. Why should they fear? To them, humans were only ghosts of a dead world. But ghosts can rise. In the darkest corner of the prison, a boy no older than 16 sat with wide eyes. His name was Daniel. He had been a child when oath-bound. He had no memory of cities or freedom. His entire life had been chains. But he listened to Marcus's stories. He watched Aisha's symbols. And inside him, something began to grow. Not fear, not despair, but belief. Belief that one day humans would rise again. The prison seemed silent. But in truth, it was not. It was alive with whispers. It was alive with waiting. Every scar, every symbol, every quiet look, they were not signs of weakness. They were seeds. Seeds of something the galaxy had forgotten. Humans were not just survivors. They were fighters. They were fire in the dark. And soon, that fire would burn again. The guards laughed as they walked away, leaving the prisoners in shadows. But if they had looked closer, if they had truly seen into those human eyes, they would not have laughed. For deep inside that prison, hope was not dead. It was sharpening itself. It was waiting for the moment when chains would break, and the galaxy would remember the name of humanity. End of Part 1. Suspense hook for next episode. The galaxy thought humans were finished. But in the silence of the prison, the first sparks of defiance had already begun. The prison was quiet, too quiet. From the outside, it looked like a place of silence, a tomb for the lost humans. The alien god believed this silence meant defeat. They thought humans had finally accepted their fate. But silence can be dangerous. Silence can hide storms. Inside the cells, the humans were not broken. They were waiting. They were watching. Aisha kept scratching her symbols on the walls. The marks grew deeper, sharper, spreading from one corner of the cell to another. To the aliens, it looked like madness. But to the humans, it was language. It was memory. It was a promise. Each mark carried meaning. Hold the line. Remember the fire. We are not done. One evening, Marcus leaned against the cold wall, his eyes half closed, pretending to rest. But his ears listened closely to the footsteps of the guards. He counted the seconds. He noted the patterns. The alien thought he was old and weak, but his mind was sharper than any blade. He whispered to the others, his voice so soft it was almost nothing. 7 steps. Pause. Then 2 more. They always walked the same. The prisoners nodded. Even Daniel, the youngest, repeated the numbers under his breath. Every detail mattered. The aliens mocked the humans often. They enjoyed reminding them of Earth's destruction. You were brave, one sneered, pressing its insect-like face against the bars. But bravery without strength is useless. Now you rot here, forgotten. Marcus stared back, saying nothing. Aisha kept scratching her marks. Daniel clenched his fists. The alien laughed and walked away. It never understood the danger in human silence. At night, when the guard grew lazy, the prisoners whispered stories, old war tales, battles where humans had been outnumbered, yet still fought. Daniel listened with wide eyes. He had been a child when Earth burned. He had no memory of cities, no memory of oceans, no memory of freedom. But through Marcus's words, he could see them. He could feel them. He asked in a low voice, "Why do we keep fighting if the galaxy already thinks we're dead?" Marcus looked at him with fire in his eyes. "Because we are not dead. We are waiting. The galaxy forgot what humans are. One day, it will remember. And when it does, it will be afraid." That night, something changed. The humans stopped being prisoners in their hearts. They became soldiers again, soldiers waiting for a battle that had not yet begun. Aisha carved a final mark into the wall. It was larger than the rest, a symbol of unity, a circle crossed by a line. Every prisoner knew what it meant. Together, always together. The boy Daniel touched the mark with trembling fingers. For the first time in his life, he felt he belonged to something greater. Meanwhile, the aliens grew careless. They had no fear. Why would they? They believed humans were extinct outside these cells. They believed the war was over. And so they began to make mistakes. Keys were left hanging too close to the bars. Tools were dropped and not picked up. God grew lazy during night shifts. The humans saw everything. Nothing escaped their eyes. Marcus began to test the chains quietly. A small pull here, a twist there. He measured how strong the locks were. Aisha studied the guard weapons when they walked by. Daniel practiced moving silently in the shadows of the cell, using only the faint light from the alien torches. The humans were building something invisible. Not a machine, not a weapon. They were building defiance. One night, as the guards laughed in the hall, Daniel whispered, "They think we are broken." Marcus's voice came like thunder in the dark. "Good. Let them think that. The enemy who underestimates you has already lost half the battle." The words sank deep into Daniel's heart. He repeated them silently, again and again. By the next morning, the prison was still the same. Cold, dark, silent. But something invisible had shifted. The humans were no longer prisoners in spirit. They were soldiers in waiting. And soldiers never forget. Soldiers never stop. The galaxy believed humanity was finished. The aliens believed humans were weak. But in the silence of that prison, sparks were starting to glow. Sparks of defiance. Sparks that could burn into fire. Sparks that could set the galaxy aflame. The prison was filled with silence, but inside every human heart, old memories were alive. At night, when the guard grew lazy, Marcus spoke softly. His voice was rough, but strong enough to reach every corner of the cell. Daniel listened closely. Aisha listened while her hands traced the carved marks on the wall. Marcus told them about Earth, about the final days. The skies burned red, he began. Cities were torn apart. Oceans boiled as alien weapons struck. They thought they could scare us into surrender. But humans don't surrender. Not then. Not ever. Daniel's eyes widened. He had been too young to remember. To him, these words were like fire. He imagined streets full of smoke, soldiers holding the line, civilians grabbing anything, sticks, stones, even broken glass, to fight. Marcus closed his eyes, remembering. His voice dropped lower. We fought in the ruins. We fought when food was gone. We fought even when we knew the end was near. Blood covered the earth, but every drop carried a message. We are human. We do not kneel. The other prisoners whispered to each other, sharing fragments of their own memories. I saw a ship fall into the sea, one said. My mother, she held a rifle to the last breath, another whispered. Every story was pain, but every story was also strength. The gods thought these stories were weakness, broken voices clinging to the past. They were wrong. These memories were weapons. Aisha spoke next. Her voice was soft, but her words were sharp. They destroyed our world, but not our spirit. That is why they fear us. That is why they lock us here. She pressed her hand against the wall, over the circle symbol she had carved. Her fingers shook, but her eyes did not. Daniel touched the mark too. He felt the strength of those who had come before him. Though he was young, he was no longer just a boy. He was part of a legacy. Marcus leaned forward, his face hard in the dim light. The galaxy thinks we are gone, but it forgets something. Humans have been tested before. Fire, famine, war, disease. Again and again, we were pushed to the edge. And every time, we survived. Every time, we came back stronger. The words hung in the air like thunder. Daniel's heart pounded. Why do they hate us so much? He asked. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Because we fight harder than anyone else. Because we don't stop. They know if even a handful of humans survive, the war is never over. Silence followed. Heavy, powerful. That night, Daniel dreamed of blood and memory. He saw Earth skies burning. He saw soldiers with weapons in their hands and fire in their eyes. He saw mothers carrying children through ruins, refusing to fall. He saw fighters screaming defiance even as ships rained destruction from above. And in every face, he saw the same thing, rage mixed with hope. When he woke, he was trembling. But it was not fear. It was fire. The next day, the aliens walked past the cells, mocking again. Look at them, one guard laughed, still staring with hate. It is pointless. Their kind is finished. The humans said nothing, but their silence was different now. It was sharper, stronger. The aliens thought silence meant defeat, but this silence meant something else. It meant waiting. It meant remembering. Marcus looked at Daniel and Aisha. Memories are weapons, he whispered. Never forget that. The day will come when we use them. Aisha nodded. Her hand returned to the wall, carving another line, another promise. Daniel clenched his fists. For the first time, he understood. Humanity's true weapon was not only steel, not only fire. It was memory. Memory of pain. Memory of loss. Memory that turned weakness into rage and rage into strength. That night, the prisoners did not feel alone. They felt like they were sitting with every fallen soldier, every lost family, every voice of Earth that had been silenced. The dead were not gone. They were there, inside their hearts, pushing them forward. The guards laughed in the distance. The machines buzzed. The prison remained cold and dark. But deep inside those walls, something dangerous was growing. Not just defiance, not just anger. A legacy, a human legacy, one built on blood and memory. The prison stayed dark, cold, and lifeless. To the aliens, it was a grave where humans were buried alive. To the gods, it was nothing more than a cage of broken animals. But they were wrong. Inside those cells, the humans were not dying. They were preparing. At first, it was almost invisible. A small movement here, a small whisper there. But day by day, the prisoners turned their pain into training. Marcus, the scarred old soldier, began with simple things. Push-ups in the shadows, squats when the guards weren't watching. He moved slowly, carefully, so it looked like he was only shifting in discomfort. But his body was remembering. His muscles were waking up. Aisha used her strength differently. She taught others how to breathe quietly, how to move without sound. She had once been a scout, skilled at moving unseen. Now, in the prison, she shared that skill. "Step with the side of your foot first," she whispered to Daniel one night. "Let your heel touch last. Spread your weight. Silence is a weapon." Daniel practiced in the darkness, copying her movements. At first, he stumbled. At first, the chains rattled. But soon, he learned. His steps became softer, quieter, almost like a shadow gliding across stone. The gods never noticed. They were too arrogant. To them, humans were finished. So when they saw movements, they thought it was weakness. When they heard whispers, they thought it was madness. But it was not madness. It was training. Marcus drilled them in whispers, using the rhythm of his voice. "Count your breaths. 1, 2, 3. Control your fear. Fear makes you loud. Calm makes you dangerous." The prisoners followed. They matched their breathing, slow and steady. Even in chains, they were becoming one body, one unit. Daniel's body grew stronger. His arms no longer shook when he lifted himself from the ground. His legs no longer wavered when he stood for hours, balancing on the tips of his toes. His eyes no longer looked like those of a boy. He was changing. Aisha noticed. She whispered to Marcus one night, "He is young, but his fire is strong. He will be more than a survivor. He will be a fighter." Marcus nodded. His scarred face softened for the first time. The galaxy thinks the young are weak, but it forgets humans grow strong in the darkest places. Even hunger became part of their training. The aliens gave them little food, thin and tasteless. But Marcus turned it into a lesson. When your stomach is empty, your body screams. Learn to control it. Learn to move even when weak. In battle, you will never have enough. You fight anyway. And so they did. Every growl of hunger became a test of will. Every ache became a lesson in endurance. The walls themselves became their teachers. Aisha used them for climbing, pressing her hands and feet against the stone to strengthen her body. Daniel learned to press himself flat, disappearing into the shadows when the guards passed. Marcus tested the iron bars, finding which ones were rusting, which ones might give under force. Every night was practice. Every day was training. The gods did not see it, but the humans felt it. Slowly, their bodies hardened, their movements sharpened, their spirits burned brighter. One evening, as the gods laughed in the distance, Marcus gathered them close. His voice was low, but his words were iron. "We are soldiers again. Every breath we take is training. Every movement is practice. When the moment comes, there will be no hesitation. We will strike as one." The prisoners nodded. Even the weakest among them, even those who had once cried in the night, now carried a new fire in their eyes. Daniel whispered, "What if we fail?" Marcus looked at him, his voice steady. "Then we fall as fighters, not as slaves. But remember this, Daniel, humans do not fail forever. Even in death, we pass on strength. Our legacy does not end. It waits, and then it rises again." Daniel's chest filled with pride. For the first time in his life, he did not feel like a child. He felt like part of something greater, part of the human legacy. The alien thought the prison was silent, but in truth, the silence was alive with hidden training. Muscles grew harder. Eyes grew sharper. Hearts grew stronger. The silence was not weakness. The silence was sharpening knives in the dark. The prison had grown used to silence. The god believed the humans were weak, broken, harmless. But deep in the shadows, something dangerous was happening. The humans were not just training anymore. They were watching, waiting, planning. And now, they were ready to take their first step. It began with a single mistake. One night, during a guard change, an alien walked too close to the bars. Its belt carried a ring of shining keys. One of those keys, small and silver, slipped loose and dangled low, almost brushing the floor. Daniel's eyes locked on it. His breath froze. His heart beat so loud he thought the guard might hear it. But the alien didn't notice. The guard laughed at the prisoners, hissed an insult, and walked away. Daniel leaned closer to Marcus and whispered, "Did you see it? The key." Marcus's scarred face remained calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Yes," he said softly. "Keys mean doors, and doors mean freedom. We wait for the right moment." But there was something else, something far greater than a key. Aisha noticed it first. The guards were carrying strange weapons, long, black rods with glowing ends, alien tools of death. But sometimes, when the guard grew lazy, they leaned them against the walls. Sometimes, they even left them lying on the ground for a few seconds. It was only a moment, but a moment could be enough. Aisha whispered to Marcus, "If we can take one weapon, even just one, it will be ours." The galaxy laughed at human weapons, but they forgot even a rusty human blade is deadly when held with will. Marcus nodded. His voice dropped to a growl. One weapon is enough to start a fire. Days passed. The prisoners trained in silence, their eyes always watching. Every shift change, every careless guard, every tool left behind. Then, one night, the moment came. A guard was dragging a weak prisoner by the arm, mocking him. In his arrogance, the alien leaned its weapon against the wall. Just for a second, that was all they needed. Aisha moved first. Her hands darted out through the bars like lightning. She grabbed the weapon before the alien noticed. She hid it beneath the rags in her cell. The guard toned, but by then the weapon was gone. It snarled, confused, then stormed off, believing it had only dropped it somewhere else. The humans stayed silent. Their faces gave nothing away. But inside, their hearts were pounding with fire. They had it, a weapon, their first weapon in years. Later that night, under the cover of darkness, Marcus lifted the weapon from the rags. He studied it, his scarred fingers tracing the alien metal. It hummed with strange power, glowing faintly at the end. Daniel stared at it in awe. "Is it ours now?" Marcus's eyes burned. "Yes, it may not be human, but in our hands it will be deadly." He raised the weapon slowly, pointing it at the wall. Even without firing, it felt heavy with promise. The prisoners gathered close. For the first time in years, hope was not just a whisper. It was real, solid, something they could touch. But Marcus's voice was hard. "We must be careful. A single weapon will not free us, but it will begin the fight. When the time comes, we will use it. And when we strike, the galaxy will remember what humans are." Aisha nodded. "A spark can start a fire." Daniel clenched his fists. His eyes no longer looked like a boy's. He was ready. From that night forward, the prison was no longer just a cage. It was a battlefield waiting to explode. The humans trained harder. They whispered more. Every chain, every lock, every careless guard was now a target. And hidden under rags, the stolen weapon glowed softly, a secret flame in the dark. The guards still laughed. They still mocked. "Your kind is finished," one sneered. No weapon, no army, no hope. The prisoners stayed silent. But behind their silence was a secret the aliens could not see. For the first time in years, the humans were armed. The galaxy believed humanity was broken. The aliens believed the war was over. But in a cold, forgotten prison, one weapon had changed everything. The humans were no longer prisoners. They were soldiers waiting for the signal. The prison was still cold and silent. The guards walked the halls with pride, believing they ruled over broken creatures. They laughed at the prisoners, calling them weak, calling them ghosts of a dead world. But the guards did not know the truth. The humans had a weapon now, hidden under rags, close to their hands, waiting. It was more than just metal. It was hope. It was fire. And fire always spreads. For days, Marcus studied the alien weapon. He tested its weight, its glow, the way it hummed in his hands. He did not fire it. Not yet. He knew the first shot had to count. He whispered to the others, "When we strike, there is no going back. The galaxy will hear us. Are you ready?" The prisoners nodded. Their eyes, once full of despair, now burned with purpose. Even Daniel, the youngest, clenched his fist with iron resolve. Aisha spoke softly. The gods grow careless. They think we are weak. That will be their mistake. Tonight, we strike. Marcus looked at her, then at the others. His scarred face was hard, but his voice was steady. Then tonight, the silence ends. The moment came during the late shift. The guards were tired, their steps slow, their eyes heavy. They walked past the cells, laughing, not noticing the tension in the air. Marcus held the weapon under the rags. His hands were steady. His heart beat like thunder. He whispered to Daniel, "Watch closely. Remember this moment for the rest of your life." Daniel nodded. His breath shook, but his eyes did not. A guard stepped too close. Its claws scraped the bars, its mouth hissing with mockery. "Still alive? Pointless. You should thank us for keeping you here. At least you die slowly." Marcus rose. His chains rattled, but his voice was calm. "No, we will not die here." Before the alien could react, Marcus pulled the weapon free. The glow lit up the cell with fierce light. He aimed straight at the guard's chest and fired. The blast tore through the air with a roar. The alien screamed as the energy burned through its body. Its blood splattered across the walls. The smell of smoke and death filled the corridor. The prison shook with chaos. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Everyone, prisoners and guards alike, froze in shock. Then everything exploded. The prisoners roared, voices echoing like thunder after years of silence. Their chains clattered as they surged forward. Marcus fired again, striking another guard down. Aisha grabbed the fallen guard's keyring, her fingers moving fast. With a sharp twist, the locks on their cell doors clicked open. The humans were free. Daniel rushed out with the others. His heart pounded, his body trembling, but he did not stop. For the first time in his life, he was not a prisoner. He was a fighter. The guards scrambled, shouting, but panic spread through them. They had never seen humans move like this. Not broken, not weak, but furious, united, unstoppable. Aisha swung a stolen rod, striking an alien across the head. Marcus fired again, his aim true, his rage steady. The humans fought with bare hands, with chains, with anything they could grab. And for the first time in years, alien blood stained the floors. The battle raged in the corridors. The prison echoed with screams, with blasts, with a sound of chain breaking. Daniel ducked under a guard strike and smashed his chain against its leg. The alien howled in pain. Daniel's arms ached, but his spirit blazed. He shouted, his voice raw, "For Earth!" Other humans shouted with him. Their voices rose together, a storm of fury. For Earth. For freedom. The gods had weapons, but the humans had something greater. They had rage. They had memory. They had survival burning in their veins. Every strike was fueled by loss. Every blow carried the weight of their dead. The prison, once a cage, had become a battlefield. Marcus fired the weapon one last time, dropping the largest guard in the hole. Smoke rose from the alien's body as it fell with a heavy crash. Silence followed. The surviving guards fled in terror. They had mocked humans for years, but now they saw the truth. Humans were not weak. Humans were not finished. Humans were born for battle. Daniel stood in the middle of the hole, his chest heaving, his hands shaking. Around him, humans stood free for the first time in years. Their eyes glowed with fire. Marcus's voice thundered through the silence. This is only the beginning. Tonight, the galaxy remembers. Humanity fights again. The humans roared together, their voices shaking the walls of the prison. The prison was no longer silent. Smoke filled the holes. Alien blood stained the floors. Chains lay broken where they had once bound human wrists. The guards who had mocked, who had laughed, now lay dead or running in fear. For the first time in years, the prisoners were free. Marcus stood at the front, the alien weapon still glowing in his hands. His scarred face was calm, but his eyes burned with fire. Around him, the others gathered, tired, wounded, but unbroken. Daniel stood among them, chest heaving, his fist still tight around the chain he had used as a weapon. He was not a boy anymore. He was a fighter. Aisha held the keys, unlocking the last cells, freeing the last of their people. Every click of a lock was a promise. No more cages. No more chains. The humans moved through the prison like a storm. They took food. They took weapons. They learned the paths of the halls. They studied the alien machines. Marcus ordered with a soldier's voice, "Take everything we can use. We are not running. We are rising." The others followed without hesitation. They had trained in silence, suffered in shadows. Now, every movement was precise. Every action was united. Daniel looked at the bodies of the fallen guards. For years, he had lived in fear of them. Now, they looked small, weak. He whispered, almost in disbelief, "We beat them." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. His voice was steady. "This is only the beginning, Daniel. One battle does not win a war, but one battle can light the fire of a legacy." Outside the prison walls, the galaxy remained blind. The alien empires believed humans were gone, extinct, forgotten, but soon they would hear the truth. The truth that in the darkest cages, humanity had not died. It had been forged. That night, the humans gathered in the central hall. The fires from their battles still burned, casting shadows across the stone walls. Marcus spoke, his voice echoing like thunder. "We were prisoners. We were mocked. We were starved. But they forgot who we are. We are humans. We do not break. We do not kneel. We rise." The crowd answered with a roar. Their voices shook the prison itself. Aisha raised a hand. She still held the alien weapon she had stolen. Her eyes glowed with fury and pride. They thought Earth was our end, but Earth was our beginning. Every drop of blood, every tear, every memory, all of it has shaped us. We were born for battle. We were forged for survival. The humans roared again, louder, fiercer. Daniel stood among them, shouting with all the strength in his heart. For the first time, he understood the truth. Humanity's greatest weapon was not steel, not fire, not machines. It was the will to fight, the will to rise, the will to endure when no one else could. The galaxy had laughed at human weapons. The galaxy had called them weak. But soon, the galaxy would learn its mistake. Because tonight, in a forgotten prison, the last survivors of Earth had lit a fire that would spread across the stars. Marcus lifted the weapon high. Its glow lit the faces of every human around him. "This is our legacy," he declared. "Not chains, not defeat. Our legacy is battle. Our legacy is survival. And from this night forward, the galaxy will remember what it means to face humanity." The humans roared as one, their voices rising into the darkness. It was not the cry of prisoners. It was the cry of warriors, the cry of a species reborn. In the silence that followed, Daniel whispered to himself, almost like a prayer. "They thought we were finished, but we were only waiting." The prison burned behind them. The humans stood together, free and armed, staring into the stars beyond the walls. The galaxy did not know it yet, but a storm was coming. A storm carried by human hands, human hearts, human rage. And when it came, no empire would be safe. Final suspenseful closing line. The galaxy had forgotten humanity's legacy. But now, it would remember. Born for battle. Forged for survival. Humanity was back.